The Angel of the House. With this, Virginia Woolf was able to perfectly illustrate the forces that held women back from achieving a career, especially so back then prior to the 1920s. Then came along The Feminine Mystique, written by Betty Friedan in the 50s, which explained the forces behind the epidemic of women retreating back into the homes. Now, the year is 2014, and I am here to humbly present to you a description of the forces that still confine women to the home. What remains the main instrument for oppression? Pregnancy. Before a woman is even pregnant, she will experience discrimination because of the chance that she may become so and then require a maternity leave. This is undesirable to companies and may very well so prevent a woman from achieving a job when up against a man. A woman experiences much more restrictions if she actually does become pregnant. Research by legal firm Slater and Gordon shows that more than half of the women they surveyed thought the attitudes of colleagues and bosses changed after they got pregnant, while a quarter said they had lost out on promotions, had work taken off them, or been demoted. These factors may not force women back into the home, but they are products of society's reluctance to accept women's transfer from the home to the workforce. What really confines women to the home still is the expectation for them to be the caretakers. Even if women don't experience discrimination upon becoming pregnant, they very likely will find themselves having to reluctantly quit their jobs to focus on their children. Why don't they place their children in childcare in order to keep working? 1. Because of society's tendency to look down on mothers who do so as selfish and irresponsible. But let's note that no blame is ever put on the father for not giving up his job. And 2. Because of the cost of childcare. Most people don't realize this, but experts have found that the most likely reason why a mom stays at home is because she cannot afford to pay for childcare. It may actually be more beneficial for a woman to quit her work and take care of her children from home than to pay for childcare. How are women supposed to feel free to venture out into the workforce if this still binds them to the home against their will? If feminists want to gain complete liberation from the home and complete equality in the workforce, then we must fight to eliminate this remaining obstacle. The more people who realize the repercussions of expensive childcare, men included, the easier this task will be. So sometimes I think about how I have so much more freedom now, and all women have much more freedom now than the woman in the 50s, and it makes me forget that oppression definitely still exists. But it also makes me question, why, if we've made so much progress, does the caretaker gender role still exist? Well, I think an answer to that can be found in The Feminine Mystique when Betty Friedan examined the 1950s. She explained the basic paradox of the feminine mystique, that it emerged to glorify a woman's role as housewife at the very moment when the barriers to her full participation into society was lowered, at the very moment when science and education and her own ingenuity made it possible for a woman to be both wife and mother, and to take an active part in the world outside the home. This makes it seem as if society, aka men, were threatened by women's liberation and fought against it to coax women back into the home. My final note to you guys is to read something that Shira Tarrant said, a professor of women's study at California State University. She said this in an article about the revival of the 1950s fashion trend. Alright, so here's what she said. Wearing kitchen aprons or form-fitting Betty Draper frock can be fun, sexy, or even practical. But this fashion revival is also powerfully symbolic and political. At this very same moment when opportunities are expanding, there is a revived appeal of the 1950s middle-class housewife look, with all its domestic associations still held firmly in place. This timing is curious. Just when social and economic expectations are shifting, we go retro. So the parallels between that quote and the one from Betty Friedan earlier is kind of alarming. Now, I'm not trying to say that American women are in the midst of a complete repeat of the 1950s. No, my intentions of reading this to you was just to put all women on guard. I'm hoping that after hearing the facts earlier about childcare and an explanation of the systematic oppression of the 1950s, that none of you guys in the audience will allow any force to deprive you of your inherent right to the pursuit of happiness, and to allow the current feminist movement to progress uninterrupted until complete equality is achieved. Do not let the angel of the house regain its control.